You guys ever noticed how poorly mapped the bottom of the flaming banana drink is? I'm Francis7, and this is my Gmax Boot Camp Extras video footage. In this case, this particular lesson, we're going to learn about vector shading. Vector shading is very cool. It's a way you can add color and or shadows to your objects to make them look really realistic without increasing your pixel budget one darn bit. And as far as I understand, I don't think it increases your vertex count one darn bit, so it's pretty darn useful. And, you know, the secret to great video games is lots and lots of shadows. So, okay, here we go. Okay, so today's activity extra is vector shading. Vector shading is a way you can add colors or maybe just shadows to an object that you've already textured, or you can actually apply the colors and then texture the object. I find it works better to, texture the object and then add colors. Let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start off with a blank cube. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up here and we're going to select the tab panel. You just right click up here and select tab panel. That brings up a whole lot of different tools across the bottom, and we're going to be under the tab marked modifiers, which I can't seem to zoom in on any further. And what we're going to do is we've created a cube, and it's basically in the same 1 meter cube. It's basically in the center of the world, and I already did that, so I'm going to convert it to a right click and convert to editable mesh. If you haven't done that already, whoops, convert to editable mesh. There we go. And then I'm going to put a UVW map on it. So over to the triangle on the right and pull down UVW map, and we'll be able to texture it. And I have a texture which is basically some sand. From there, it's sort of sand. I'll just do it as a box so that the texture looks nice and even, and there we go. We've got our texture on our box. This is the same texture I used on the cube you saw earlier, but vector shading is going to allow us to do a lot of other things with it. So now I right click on the box again. I convert to editable mesh because I need to get the vertices from the selection tool over here. You'll remember that that's the little dots. I'm going to go ahead and I'll just go ahead and draw a box around all the dots in top view. So now if you look, you can see that all the vertices, all of them are selected. They'll all be red. You don't have to select all of them. You can just do some of them, but we'll just play with this for a minute. The next thing is the tool. Right up here, where is it? Now I've lost track of it. It looks like, oh yeah, here it is. It looks like a spray paint can with some dots. So that's pretty easy one to remember. Spray paint with dots, and that brings up some. You can create your own colors, of course, but it gives you some basic colors to work with. There's a paintbrush and an eyedropper, and the opacity is how thick the darn thing is. It's not like in an art program where you have a control over how fast it comes out. But if you click on the paintbrush and set it to like 10 over here, I find it's much more manageable to work with. Then I go ahead and pick a color, like for example, pink. Okay, now you can only affect the vertices you can actually see. I can't really color the other side of the cube from here. So for example, this is, let me go ahead and put this in full screen mode. This is the ideal vertice right here because it's sort of facing me. So if I sort of paint around it, it'll all sort of get pink. If I keep going, this cube will then become pink. It won't get the other side of the cube completely because that vertice is not visible. As you can see, 10 is quite a bit. Maybe I'll put it down to 5 for the purposes of this demonstration. And I'm picking pink because it's a color I know will show up good in the video. So let's go ahead and just tint this a little bit. Okay, I've tinted this vertice pink. And let's go over here. We'll make this one yellow, which probably won't show up much because it's sort of yellow to begin with. Let's make one green. All right, and let's see. Let's make one blue here. All right, so we've painted this in. And now, so without actually adding any more textures, we've sort of made this object look quite a bit different. There's an awful lot of vertex shading, especially in the early 2003, 2002, and earlier models in there.com that they're made. And there's actually a lot of vertex shading in some developer models too. Most of the time when you see it in there, it's not used to add color so much as it is to add shadows. Let's undo a few of these things. I think we can undo them. Are we back to normal? That looks pretty normal. Okay, so I just use Control Z, by the way, to get normal. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, I just because of out of habit and I stopped the camera, I'm going to convert this to another editable mesh. I'm going to grab the vertex tool over here, once again it's the dots, and going to click outside of the, just in the gray area to unselect everything. And then I'm just going to grab the bottom dots by drawing a box around them. In the top view, it may look a little strange, but basically, if I look at it down here, I've got my 4 dots that are sort of red down at the bottom, and I'm all ready to do this. So, okay, here we go. This is going to be, oops, I hate when that happens. All right, so it's hard to zoom in just right. I'm going to use the, there we go, the perspective tool. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the spray paint can again, and I'm going to select the paintbrush. I'm going to make it, let's say, 5. And let me show you where I did this over here. So the paintbrush and 5, and I'm going to pick black or a dark gray. Let's do black because it'll show up better on the video. All right, and then I'm going to go down and I'm going to shade this in. Let's grab the other side, get this too. There we go. And the bottom is all black, and there we go. Maybe gray would be a better color. Let's use the dark gray instead. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of shadow to this cube to the bottom. You know, it's the bottom of an object. It might be shaded differently. All right, so let's take a look at that. And there's our cube. And it's been shaded in a little bit on the bottom. By grabbing only the ones on the bottom, I really wasn't able to affect the top vertices very much at all. You can, by selecting areas, you can only color specific areas. Let's have another example. Let me make another object here. Okay, so I'm going to create a box, and basically I'm just going to make a fairly thin box. Maybe you could walk on it like a deck or something like that. And I'm going to make a couple different segments in this box. Over on the left, we're going to make it 4 by 4. Let me show you where that is. So over on the right, length segments, width segments. I don't need any height segments because I'm going to eventually get rid of this. And then basically that'll make this into a grid, which is kind of useful. And what I'm going to do is I am going to right click on the object, convert it to an editable mesh. I'm going to grab the vertice tool and I'm going to highlight all the bottom ones. Well, first of all, vertices are your enemies, and this particular object, maybe you need to walk on it, but it doesn't need to have any thickness. So I'm just going to delete all those. Now, basically, what I've created is a one-sided plane, and I have a lot of dots on it. So a lot of vertices can be colored in. Basically, let's say that we were making, I don't know, maybe we're building a house, and so over here, oh, don't forget to set those back when you make your next box to 1. if you have all these length and width segments, you're going to have a lot of issues. I mean, they're useful and all that, but let's say we have 2 height segments. Yeah, that's good. And in this particular wall that we're creating, I'm going to go ahead and lower down this particular one to where the bottom of the window might be, something like that. And then I'm going to create another box, which is going to cut a hole for my window. Once again, it's only going to be 1 height segment tall. I'll put it up here, so it's sort of, there's going to be where my window is. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll cut across that line. Maybe I'll go above it. No, actually, let's cut across it. Okay, so I had to make sure that it sticks all the way through the wall, once again, to use Boolean logic. And over here, I've made sure that it basically fits through there. I right-click on the wall, convert it to an editable mesh. I go up to the create little arrow up here, I guess that's what they call it. And then I'm going to go, instead of standard primitives, I want compound objects. So compound objects, and then I'm going to use a Boolean thing. You don't have to be doing this right now. We kind of covered this in another lesson already, and then or extra already. And then we're going to pick operand B, which is going to be the window piece. And let's go up here. Pick operand B. I clicked it. Okay, so now I've got a window that's been cut into this wall, and it's a good idea to zoom in and make sure that you don't have too many extra verts. So the way you can do that, you can right click on your wall and convert it to an editable mesh, and go over and click on the little polygon tool, and you just want to make sure that there aren't extra verts. Like sometimes they're hiding like right next to the other ones. This one all looks fine. All right, and so basically we're doing this as an experiment in coloring. So let's go ahead and we'll view this. Right click on this, we'll go view from the front since it's supposed to be the front. Click zoom extents again, maybe move stuff around a little bit so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to go down here and I'm going to right click on the wall, convert to editable mesh, get the polygon tool. I want the whole wall, at least the inside of it. And I'm going to go to the spray paint can, and in here I'm going to kick the light gray and the paintbrush. I'm just going to paint basically a lot of stuff around the window. So now I've painted this is the inside of the room, and let's say there's light streaming in through the window. You can't actually paint light on the window with vector shading. There are light maps and things you can do that with, but we're not getting into those because you can't do them in Gmax, and not 100% sure that they're ever accepted them yet anyhow. So, but vector shading allows you to simulate light by making areas that are not light darker. So let's convert the floor to an editable mesh. We'll get the polygon, the vertex tool. We'll highlight all of the dots in the grid, so they're all on. This is the bottom object, and we'll go ahead and get to the spray paint can once again. The spray paint can. There, I can zoom in on it now. Is the vertex shade tool. We'll go ahead and shade this in, and we're going to get the light gray again, and we're going to shade the areas sort of over here a little bit, maybe. And maybe a little bit over here. There we go. So we've kind of shaded this in a little bit. Maybe take white and get some of these out of the way. And let's show you what that looks like. So there we sort of created an area where there's some shadows in the corners, and that'll kind of help once you put your texture on to make it look like you've got a little bit more. Anyhow, I do a much better job, but I don't have time in the example video, and you get the idea. So now, vector shading. You can use it to add all kinds of little detail to your objects without actually adding, actually adding any other textures or other things. You can make dark corners. It's very useful, and things like that. There's something I forgot to tell you in that video. When you're dealing with these objects that you vector shaded, sometimes the vector shading will disappear. It's important you save as and give it different names often. I'm not sure exactly what causes it. It might be like transparencies, where you just have to link the vector shaded objects to themselves first, and then link them to any non-vector shaded objects. It might have something to do with duplicating it once it's linked to a master node. I've never quite figured it out, but sometimes the vector shading will just poof, disappear. And that's really not what you want to have happen. So save as often, make duplicate backups when you're working with this tool, and realize that sometimes about when you're finished with the model, that vector shading disappears. And it is visible when it disappears. You just may not be noticing it because you're busy trying to finish everything else. Anyhow, that's basically it for me, Francis 7. Do sign up for the UOT bootcamp class that I teach and learn all about basic modeling before trying these things. And that's it. See you soon.